this is very weird, isn't it? You're like, Simon, where the hell are you hosting from today? But if we are going to review wrestling show 52 weeks a year, sometimes life just walks up and it kicks your ass, but the show must go on. So now I'm in some kind of undisclosed location or parts unknown. My name is Simon Miller, and if you can believe it, this week we get to review Super SmackDown. And I wonder why it's almost like there's a wrestling war going on, which is actually making all programs far better. So I say get those guns and continue to fire. But for now, we take the finger of power and we give the good bits up and the bad bits down for the latest episode of SmackDown. Edge is a very popular man. You know how it goes. That riff starts, and everybody goes absolutely crazy. That happened at the start of SmackDown, and straight away I'm giving it up. He did the whole, I'm super serious now, so I'm going to cut my promo by sitting down in a chair and bless Adam Copeland from the bottom of my heart because he keeps reminding us of all the stuff that happened years ago. He was like, oh man, remember that time Seth Rollins tried to break my neck even though I wasn't medically cleared? And I appreciate this because I do remember watching it. I'm a nerd, and Mr. Edge is a nerd too. He continued on with this as well, because he was all like, ha ha ha, Seth broke into my house, and this is very similar to what I did to John Cena years ago when I confronted his dad, and you know what? Seth Rollins isn't Edge light, he is one of the toughest guys in the company, which is why I must kill him when we go to Saudi Arabia at Crown Jewel. He also mentioned that they better finish this soon, otherwise it's going to escalate too crazy. Like maybe he has to go to Seth Rollins' house and get in Becky Lynch's face. And once again, much like Beth Phoenix, I was like, I don't think Becky Lynch needs to worry about this. She can handle herself. He then had a really cool go-home line about being a scar that's never going to go away or something, but trust me, when I watched it, I was like, oh man, that Edge, he's quite the doolally. This was really good. This is the best feud on all of SmackDown, and I am enjoying it a lot. SmackDown wasn't mucking around this week either, because then it was round 2 of the King of the Ring, and we had Finn Balor versus Sami Zayn. And you could travel to any timeline in whatever this reality is, and it would always be pretty good to the point it gets a UP. I've never done that before, and I'm never gonna do it again. They just went full-on wrestling tennis too, and they are so good at it. Like Sami Zayn went for a sunset flip, so Finn Balor reversed that into a dropkick, and then Finn Balor was going for an arm drag, so Sami Zayn reversed that into the clothesline. It was just bada bing, bada boom, bada bing, bada boom. But they got a massive flip dive from Balor because it is 2021, and by the time Sami had got back into this, he climbed to the top rope and Finn drop-kicked him out of midair. You can't fake that, ladies and gentlemen. That is called physics. But isn't wrestling just really pretty? Sami was still able to smash out a Blue Thunderbomb for a really close near fall, and then he was going for shenanigans by putting his feet on the ropes. But the referee actually did his job on this evening, and he saw it and said, that's not how this match is going to end. And then it didn't really help him because Finn Balor climbed to the top rope, he hit the coup de grace, he got the 1, 2, 3, and now he proceeds to the King of the Ring finals. And while I'm desperate for Xavier Woods to win this, if Finn Balor did come out victorious, I'd be fine with it. I still kind of have this feeling deep down in my tum-tum that we should be doing more with both Sami Zayn and Finn Balor. What do I know? Look at me. Disgusting. We got all the big hoo-ha with Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns because later on they are going to have a contract signing, and we either have a video where it was like, oh, what side is Paul Heyman on? And we also had a vignette for Drew McIntyre, which I thought was very timely because there is basically your main event scene for SmackDown for a while, Brock versus Roman and Roman versus Drew. Incredibly, we then actually got Naomi versus Sonya Deville. Kinda. Like, I was convinced that WWE was going to find their way out of this, and they kinda did, but ultimately, I don't think that management understands how much people care about this story, how much people care about this feud, or at least I do. That's why I'm giving it a down. And why? Because it went 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Naomi's first match on SmackDown, Sonya Deville's return to the ring, and we clocked it out at 120 seconds. And for the life of me, I can't understand why. I mean, it was probably because instantly we had a bunch of shenanigans, because Sonya Deville came out here dressed in her suits. You're like, well, you're not gonna wrestle. And because she has the powers, because she's an evil GM, she had turned this into a handicap match, and her partner was going to be Shayna Baszler. Now, did anybody tell us why all of a sudden Shayna Baszler would want to help out Sonya Deville? No, they did not. And usually I'd be like, well, we'll wait and see, let the story play out. But so often WWE just hasn't bothered with an explanation. Now I never think I'm going to get it. And it was cool to a certain extent, but I just think Baszler especially is better as a lone wolf. And yeah, they just beat Naomi up. Eventually Shayna applied the Kira Fuda clutch. It meant Naomi passed out, which allowed Sonya Deville to pin her with one foot on her chest. That ain't great at all. And I will say there was something here. It just deserved a little bit more time. And when Naomi does get her revenge, that will be Fabu. And also, given that it is Baszler and Deville, we can call them bad. And I did my research, and there has never been a team bad ever in WWE. Seth Rollins was then out to cut a promo, and that was a little bit weird because, of course, we focused on this so much at the start of the show, and I was a little bit like, so we can dedicate a lot of time to this, but we can't have more than 120 seconds for a women's match. But look, as I've already said, this is the best feud on SmackDown. At this stage, I would usually take a crack at the attire that Seth Rollins was wearing, but the fans did it for me this week because they started going, Harley Quinn. And he did look like Harley Quinn because he has the best suit game in all of professional wrestling. And he was just going nuts here saying, I'm not scared about Edge in the Hell in a Cell. I've been in Hell in a Cell. Edge knows nothing about Hell in a Cell, and that's why I'm gonna win. He also dropped a really good line in there that he's only the man he is today because of the Cell. And I like to think this was a wink, wink, nod, nod to that absolute debacle with Bray Wyatt, because it was that match that was the catalyst for turning him back heel. He finished it all off by reminding us that he's Seth frickin' Rollins, and I like to think he does this when he goes home too, walks in the door to his parents and he goes, ha ha ha, it's me, Seth frickin' Rollins. They're like, oh man, Sethy boy's back. This is gonna be difficult. I really do like this version of the character though. The end of this trilogy is going to be absolutely badass. Both of these dudes, pow, knocking it out of the park. We are then officially stuck in this pattern too, because it was back to the Queen's Crown tournament, Carmella versus Zelina Vega, and you already know the deal here, it got barely any time, and that's why it's getting it down. All week too, people have been saying, well, clearly Carmella was going to win this one, and I thought that was incredibly disrespectful to Vega, because Vega has been competing in tournaments for over 30 years, and Vega has been wearing a mask, and Vega has been brandishing a claw. Terrible, awful, and they were all wrong, because Vega won. I was then laughing my ass off because my dumb joke kind of manifested itself, because beforehand, Carmella and Zelina Vega had a chat. They were like, oh man, we're gonna be friends because we hate Liv Morgan so much. To the point, Carmella, you don't need to wear the mask, because why don't we agree not to hit each other in the face? I'm not gonna lie, I'm just gonna be honest with you here. That's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard in professional wrestling. So of course, when we got to the actual match, Carmella did hit Zelina Vega in the face, but she was all like, oh man, I didn't mean to do it. It was an accident. And Vega got so mad, Carmella decided she was going to bail, but then Liv Morgan had used her magic voodoo powers to be on the outside of the ring with Carmella's mask, and when Carmella then got back in the squared circle, she was hit by the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment. 1, 2, 3, she lost. Now, I don't want to be that guy, but I am going to be that guy, and it just doesn't really feel like WWE cares about this tournament. God is gonna be pissed. We then had it confirmed that Baron Corbin's Happy Talk is officially just a bizarre, weird segment that I think is just gonna get odder and odder and odder every week. And because I am a massive goofball, it is getting it up. It is totally nuts though. Like, it starts with Madcap Moss and Baron Corbin telling jokes as they both just go, ha 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 ha, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. Then they took a veiled shot at Kevin Owens, but we never saw Kevin Owens. And then they were interrupted by Rick Boogs and Shinsuke Nakamura, who just played Shinsuke's theme, and then they left. And this is how we're going to have an Intercontinental title program. You interrupted my show by playing some music, and that blew my mind. But as always, Rick Boogs stole the show here, because the Street Profits made their entrance as soon as this was done, and he was on his guitar jamming to their music. I somehow was entertained throughout all of this though. I mean, it did feel like I'd fallen asleep and had the strangest dream of my life. But what are you gonna do? I'm a very screwed up person. It also meant that it was SmackDown Tag Team Titles time, as we had the Usos versus the Street Profits for the 9,768th time. But the thing is, I always say this is boring, but it's true, they're so good at wrestling. Up. It was a street fight which helped as well, because they were just battering the piss out of each other to begin with, including grabbing each other and chucking them into the barricades. And then Montez Ford did that crazy dive over the ring post and landed on his feet To the point, nobody else other than Darby Allin should even thinking about doing dives. They were then smashing each other with kendo sticks, and as always you're like, why is there kendo sticks under a wrestling ring? It doesn't make any sense. Before Montez Ford drop-kicked a chair into Jimmy Uso's face. Now thankfully Jay saw this, he passed him a Phoenix down, the brothers got back to their feet and they smashed him with double super kicks. We then got some great, oh my gosh, your partner saved you at the last minute near falls, including one from Montez Ford's frog splash, but then he got taken out the ring, he got thrown through a table, Angelo Dawkins tried to ring wild, he got hit with double super kicks too, then he got hit with the double splash, the Usos retained their titles, and I killed over on the floor. What a fantabulous match. As I always do say, we do need to find some more tag teams and insert them into the division, but all these four guys are pretty good. Michael Cole then reminded us that the last 30 minutes of Super SmackDown were commercial free, and I was like, oh, why are you doing that? I know exactly why you're doing that. But also it meant we got Sasha Banks versus
Becky Lynch.
In its entirety, this was like pay-per-view stuff. If you could believe it too, this had a finish. I know, I couldn't believe it either, to the point I rang my mum and I said, Mum, have I died? And she's like, what are you talking about? None of this makes any sense. And sure, there was a distraction here, but a distraction in WWE is like me breathing. I just expect it, and this is getting it up. It was an absolute delight too, especially as it was a women's match and it got 20 minutes. And of course, before we did kick things off, Bianca Belair came out to do commentary. And that's when you went, well, I can see how it's going to end, but I don't care because the action was so good. It was all wrestling to begin with until they did brawl to the outside where Sasha Banks ran into the ring post. By accident, she wasn't being weird. And this gave Becky Lynch a great plan because she was like, well, now I can just win by count out because I don't care how I get my victories. But sadly for big time Bex, this doesn't work at all. I got the feeling throughout all this too that eventually Sasha Banks is probably going to turn back to being a babyface so she can feud with Charlotte Flair, especially when Becky jumped off the middle rope at one point. Sasha got out of the way and she murked her with a backstabber, and then they were on the outside again and Sasha Banks locked in the bank statement. Becky Lynch tapped out here too, but of course they were on the outside. Counted for 9. It was important that you remember that they were fighting here though, because as Becky Lynch went to punt Sasha Banks, Sasha moved, meaning Becky blasted Bianca Belair right in the face. And that's when I got my watch out and I went, well, I wonder how long it's going to take Belair to retaliate. And it wasn't very long because she got her hair and she whipped Becky Lynch's hand. That is not a sentence anybody should be saying. It also meant that Becky was distracted, meaning she got hit with the backstabber and got beaten for the first time in ages. So bring down the distraction board, that goes up to 112. But again, throw it back up. Who gives a flub? This was an absolutely excellent match, which you should be going to watch. Our Super SmackDown was then ready to end with a contract signing. WWE, you so crazy. However, this also featured Brock Lesnar, this also featured Roman Reigns. The fans treated them like they were the biggest stars they'd ever seen, so it managed to tick all the boxes up. I also just love the role reversal here because it makes everything seem so fresh. And when Brock Lesnar did get in the ring, he was sat back in a chair and he put his feet on a table. And of course, because Roman Reigns is the head of all tables, he was like, oh man, this is so disrespectful, I'm gonna beat you up. Reigns then told Paul Heyman to go through the contract to make sure it was all kosher, which he did do. But when Brock Lesnar got it, he didn't even sign in the appropriate space. He just scrawled all over the page. Then Roman got a microphone. He was like, you are an absolute dick, my friend. Why didn't you read it? Are you some kind of idiot? So Brock laughed. He said, I ain't no idiot, Roman. I already read it this morning alongside my advocate, Paul Heyman. So it was all done, and it was a great touch. And then Brock got off and he just left. He was laughing the entire time, and I was laughing for him because I was like, he got paid $2 million for doing that, and he was only in the ring for around about 4 minutes. So fair play to that guy, he knows exactly what he is doing, and honestly, this whole story is so good because I genuinely don't know in what direction it will head. Is Paul Heyman with Roman Reigns? Is Paul Heyman with Brock Lesnar? I suppose we will find out at Crown Jewel. So that is a couple of thumbs for a pretty good SmackDown. That's also why I love this wrestling war. There is no way that WWE isn't trying harder at the moment. The evidence is right there, and it's why overall, SmackDown is getting it up. Now please do leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about last night's episode of SmackDown. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head over to WhatCulture.com where you can read yourself some articles. Make sure you come follow us on social media, and we have loads of videos Just watch one, I'm not asking for a lot. My name is Simon Miller from some weird location. Sorry about this, but it will be business as usual from tomorrow. You take care. I'll see you soon.